Not only do I want to have fun while out riding my bike on the road, but I want to make sure that I'm safe. And I have found that many people are not familiar with the laws regarding bicycles and vehicles being on the road at the same time. How do they work together? What's allowed? What's not allowed? Here's a good example of somebody not really following the rules of the road. They don't have a stop sign and they stop. So that's kind of one of my pet peeves, if you will, is when people see a bicycle and it's like their brain freezes and they don't know what to do. It's like, if it's a stop sign, stop. If it's not a stop sign, don't stop. Oftentimes I'll have people who wave me on, you know, when I'm at a stop sign, like a four-way stop, and they stopped first, but they see me coming, and I'm like, no, go. It's your turn. You should be going first. Because I feel like anytime you try and change the system, change the rules suddenly, that's when accidents and mistakes can happen. At least that's my personal opinion. I know you can't really see the bike while I'm riding, but guess what? This is another giveaway bike. More on that at the end of this video. I just had some fun riding outside, showing you guys how I ride on the road. When do I ride on the shoulder? When do I ride in the middle of the road? But before we get to that, I need to answer this question. Were roads built for cars or were they built for bicycles? And when I say roads in this context, I mean smooth paved roads. This is a bumpy, rocky road. And I imagine this is probably what some of the early roads felt like. Roads were originally built for carriages and horses, which means they had lots of little potholes and nice ruts where the wheels, of course, would go for those carriages. Often I see people saying that cyclists should get off the road and they should go ride on the trails. Then you see the counter argument that people are saying, no, roads were actually made for bicycles first and cars second. So I decided to do a little bit of digging and find out, is that actually true? You see, in the 1880s, there was this thing invented called the safety bicycle. Before that, you had the big wheel penny farthing. And keep in mind that 1895 was when Mr. Bolton patented his electric bicycle, which of course is where we get the Bolton e-bike's name. It's amazing to think that it took about another 125 years for e-bikes to really start catching on. In the late 1800s, not everybody could afford a bicycle. That was a luxury item. There weren't a lot of places to ride a bicycle because of the condition of the roads. It was at that time that the League of American Wheelmen was formed, and it was basically a rich group of cyclists at the time who wanted better roads. They helped to enable legislation to build roads, and they did this on the premise that the roads would be used by everybody. So right now, this is a perfect example. I'm riding, as you notice, in the road, not on the shoulder, which obviously you can see there's cars on the shoulder, so I couldn't physically ride there, even if I wanted to. But that's the first thing I want to talk about is, where are you allowed to ride? And many people think that when you're on a bicycle, you have to be on the right side of the road. And this is a perfect example of obstacles. Obviously, I can't ride on the right side of the road, and there's a bunch of trash cans there. Or right here, and this is on the main road right by the shop, you can see that there is a white line, and then there's basically no shoulder. So I can choose to ride towards the right like I am right now, or it's perfectly legal for me to ride right here. And yes, I am in the center of the road, right smack dab in the middle. And many of you might be wondering, well, how does that work? What if you're blocking traffic behind you? You know, I'm doing 10 miles an hour just cruising along up this hill. What happens when there is a car? Well, thankfully there are no cars behind me. But if there were, is it still legal for me to be there? And the answer is yes. Often when people think about sharing the road, they assume that means that
the bicycle has to be off to the right, and the car is able to squeeze right by. And that's not the case at all. That's not what that means. So here's what's supposed to happen in California, and many other states have adopted this law too. And basically there's a 3-foot law. A car that is passing a cyclist, or a person in a vehicle that's passing a cyclist, they have to give them at least 3 feet of space. Which means that if I'm riding over here on the white line, they need to be basically in the middle of the lane over there when they pass by. If I am riding in the middle, then technically they'd have to be all the way on the other side of the road. Cars are allowed to cross over the double yellow to pass by a cyclist safely. So you kind of have to use some common sense. But essentially, if I'm going along a road and I'm going too slow for a vehicle, that means that they can pass, assuming they give me 3 feet of space. And if it is not safe to pass, it is not safe, they can't give me 3 feet, then the legal correct thing to do is to wait, to slow down behind the person on the bicycle and wait until there's either more of a shoulder, more room, there's no cars coming the other direction, so they can pass by. So I've just shared a few examples where you might want to or need to ride in the middle of the road. You know, like there's obstacles, like cars parked on the side, so you physically can't go there. Now, when the road becomes really narrow, a lot of times people will have the temptation to ride, and let's do this right here. They'll have the temptation to ride right on the white line like this, thinking that they're giving cars more room to pass. And although that's partially true, sometimes that actually causes an unsafe situation because you're actually encouraging cars to pass you, and sometimes they will try and squeeze by. So the safer thing to do is actually to ride more in the middle of the road. And see, this guy saw me. I'm right in the center of the road. If you ride to the side, you're not as visible, you're harder to see. Once again, you're encouraging people to pass by really closely. If you're in the middle, people will see you basically every time. Now I'm gonna share one more example where maybe the road is plenty wide, but it's perfectly safe and legal for you to ride right in the center of the road. Before I get there, here's a massive wide shoulder, so I might as well ride over here and give people plenty of room. There's no reason not to. But be careful when you do things like that, because sometimes that wide area may end abruptly and you have to move back into the shoulder. So that's an example where I had to move over. That car was coming pretty fast. They chose not to slow down and they just cut close by. People are gonna do that. If I had been on the shoulder or closer to the roadway, they probably would have seen me earlier, probably would have slowed down, give me a little more room. But here's an example where I think the best thing to do is go right in the middle of the road. We're doing, about, say 20, 25 miles an hour road with a low speed limit. Perfectly legal to ride in the middle. It's the safest place to be. That's where people are gonna see me easily. And then of course, if you have a trail, might as well take it. And every once in a while, you gotta stop and pick your bike up over a log. Make sure to just use common sense. Be safe when you're out riding and have fun. Now, this bike right here is a 750 watt fat bike, and it is our review bike for tomorrow. So if you wanna see more about this bike, then make sure to watch the review here on the Bolton E-Bikes YouTube channel. Hit that subscribe button, hit like, and I will be back live tomorrow. If you enjoyed this video, also make sure to check out this one about other electric bike laws in the United States, where I go into detail about Class 1, Class 2, Class 3, where you can legally use and ride your electric bike.